That's all.
Rick, 20 minutes?
Okay.
What do you think of 20 minutes?
Okay. Whatever you want. When do you want me to? I'll have the time here so I can let you know.
Let me know. Testing, 1, 2, I know. I haven't made a week.
Testing.
Testing, 1, 2, hi.
Testing. One of those three is called a single. One to the clock.
That's like a nasty word.
No, so I said it doesn't keep on from saying.
I'm glad we're not live yet. Yeah.
That's number 4.
The music right.
1, 2. Do we leave it down here?
Oh, you pick it up.
Testing. Testing 1, 2. Well, hello everyone. Are we on? Welcome to Newsmakers Live.
Hey.
Yes, where Jim Welcome is the executive producer and our host. I'll let him introduce our wonderful guest, Dr. Gerald Curley. But our host holds many titles. He holds president, executive editor, managing editor, and also an 8-time Emmy-winning TV reporter. Maynard Eaton.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being here tonight. We love prominent, passionate, powerful folks, and we certainly have one tonight. Plus, he has an added caveat of being a premier preacher. Meet Reverend Gerald Curley, please. He's as I said, a famed Atlanta preacher, a social justice advocate, who just says to me in a magazine article, SCLC magazine, I'm not retired, I'm rewired. Welcome, Dr. Curley. What is that?
Thank you very much. First of all, let me thank Mr. Welcome for opening his place here and being a sponsor for something that is so essential because our people perish because of lack of information. And Newsmakers has always been in the front line guard. And you, as an Emmy-winning journalist, has always put it in and brought guests. So I'm honored to be here. When I spent 25 years at Providence and Dean and different places, and it came to a point where I was ready to change. And I think everybody should change. The song says everything must change. And so rather than retirement, I went into rewirement. You see, retirement has certain cognitive connotations. We say retire, and that means I'm going to sit down, I'll go play golf, I'm going to play with my grandchildren. I knew I wasn't going to do any of that.
Too much left to do?
There's too much left to do. So I'm rewired. When wires get frayed, they rewire them. They don't retire them. So I'm rewired now, and I'm enjoying rewiring.
And what's the new passion? What's the new purpose? I'm told it's climate change.
Well, it's climate. I think anybody of his or her salt must have some purpose in life and must have something that they're passionate about. My concern and passion right now is eco-justice, climate change, global warming.
You said eco-justice.
Eco-justice is a term. There's a new term that's now over the next 3 to 4 months is going to take the place of climate change. The Pope has come out with it, with La Salusi. It's probably going to be climate emergency, and the Latino community is coming up with the term now, climate crisis, because climate change is going on. So right now, my passion is an extension of my passion for the last 50 years.
What is it?
Civil rights, human rights.
And now?
Now, I think the civil rights issue facing African Americans, poor people, those who live in rural areas, has got to be around the climate change. Because all of that is what really affects our life. We have a constitutional right, as we did to vote, ride in front of the bus, and drink water. We have a constitutional right for clean water. We have a constitutional right to have toxic waste dumps not put in our neighborhood. We have a constitutional right to have toxic-free air. These are constitutional rights to have food deserts that are placed in our community. We, as an African American people, we suffer more from pollution, and we pollute the least amount. So therefore, my passion is an extension since 1960. That's 59 years.
In a sense, a new ministry for you, but there are those when you were in the pulpit, you could talk about black folks not being able to vote, or black folks being beat in Nashville, or where you're from, Tennessee, or other visible evidence like that. Where's the evidence? Where's the calling cry in climate change?
Well, the calling cry in climate change, first of all, I don't believe that science and faith are incongruous with each other.
Oh, wow.
Science and faith. We believe very much in the scientific data that is being proven as far as the climate, the heating temperatures that are going on. These are real. This is evidence. And also, from a faith perspective, I have to put it in this. From a faith perspective, we're so easy to get in the pulpit and go to the second book of the Bible, to Exodus. But now, I believe, Brother Maynard, you played baseball. What are you now, about 80? Well, I don't know. But,
I'm 70. I was a catcher at Hampton University.
You played baseball.
Yeah.
When you hit the ball, where did you run?
First base.
First base. Now, why is it when we, from the pulpit, we get ready to preach about the commandments? What did God tell us to do? What did God command us to do? We run to the second book and go to the 10 commandments, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not fornicate, and we feel good preaching from the second book. But the first book says, thou shalt take care of my earth. I make you stewards. I make you caregivers. If you can take care of my earth, my bees, my plants, my human, my air, my water, I will give you everything that you need. That's first base. So we're running past first base, going to the second book, to the second group of commandments, missing the first book of commandments. Therefore, when you miss first base and you go to second base, guess what? You're out. And that's where we are right now. We're out because the commandments that God initially gave us. So who backs us up? The scientists. The scientists say this is what's going on when it comes to asthmatic attacks, when it comes to mercury in the air, when it comes to lead, when it comes to methane, when it comes to carbon dioxide in the air. These are created by what we have done by running past the first commandment to the second base. And right now we're out. So we've got to go back and get the rules straight.
Wow. That sounds like a sermon right there. And really, you are traveling the world preaching, teaching this sort of stuff.
Yes. And it's picking up. We have to understand one thing which I think is very important. One would ask the question, why in the African American community, why in the rural poor, which are being devastated throughout the world, whether tsunamis or hurricanes or whatever it might be, wildfires or whatever. In our community, it is not catching on as it should.
Right. Because
we have other priorities. We've got priorities of racism. We've got priorities of police brutality. We've got priorities of unemployment. We've got priorities of inaccessibility to appropriate health care. We've got priorities ahead of this. So we see this as something in the distant future. But in reality, even here in Atlanta, our asthmatic rate among our children went from 8 to 28%. Children that can't breathe because of the humidity and because of the heat. When you put anything or anybody in a closed community like Ferguson, Illinois, you put them there, poor education, inaccessibility to health care, no job, and put 105-degree temperature on them for 15 days. It doesn't take a policeman to ignite it. A baker can do it. So we've got to look at, and it's not a priority. So my job, I feel now, is how do we connect the dots?
You've been quoted as saying that climate change is an equal opportunity destroyer. So it means it impacts everybody, all races, all cultures.
Did it destroy Malibu? Did it destroy Paris, Paradise in California? The same destruction there that went on in Missouri and other parts of America and other parts of the world. It doesn't choose a community because of its economic visibility and well-being. It is an equal opportunity destroyer. And we saw that. Look at California. The wildfires are just ravaging some of the most expensive homes in the country.
Well, look at also the Panhandle where the black poor were devastated, wiped out, homes gone. People are saying trying to help them rebuild. SCLC is one of their main things. So while it's maybe equal opportunity, the resources to help are not coming in.
They're not there, and unfortunately, if anything is to make a major difference, and this is a strange kind of political, we've got to understand the three major variables. The first variable, and I have no problem, business. It's a business. It's putting profits over people. When you look at the cars, we had some legislation and regulations to cut back and move toward electric cars, moved for battery power. We came back, now we're moving back toward the other side. The coal industry, fossil burning fuel, it's all about business. So business people stay on the forefront because of a profit. The energy companies do. Georgia Power, it's energy company. So they influence the second group of people, the politicians. And the politicians, the business people influence the politicians, and the politicians make the legislation. So I have no problem. The three groups we got to challenge: business people, let them make the money, but let them put it not people over profits. Right now, out of Stanford, we've got 92% of how this issue technologically can be resolved, climate change. But it is not profitable for the business. So let the business people win, let the politicians win, and let the scientists win. But guess who really has to be the motivating force? The moral community. The moral community to make those decisions where we all win, and most of all, our plant life, our air life. We've destroyed all the bee colonies which pollinated the food that we had. When I went to Washington a few weeks ago, we were talking about GMOs, genetically modified organisms, food products that are being sold in our neighborhood, and we still don't know the impact on the physiological body. Whereas a broader community can buy organic food, we can't afford it.
You talked about a moral authority, a moral voice. You were that as a pastor emeritus at Providence Baptist Church, as president or major player to concern black clergy. Now you're a major player, if not one of the few, if only, black leading voices in the climate change controversy. What is your voice falling on deaf ears in our community?
Our voices fell on deaf ears in 1960. I'll never forget when I got to school. I was 18 years old, and a white man came up to me, and put his finger in my face and said, "Look here, you need to go back to Africa. This is our country. Don't you know you'll never vote?" Guess what? He's dead and I'm voting. So it doesn't matter whose ears they fall upon, is that you keep speaking to some ears. And that's what it's about. The man who created Mount Rushmore, they said he was crazy because he kept chipping away. But guess what? Because he kept chipping, we have a national monument. So it might be falling on deaf ears now. But the political realities that are occurring in the next few months, from now to 20, climate change is at the top.
Sir, but I know you. I've been around. I don't know you. But I'm saying, even some of your contemporaries, your friends have said, "Gerald, is this really the issue you want to tackle?" There's some doubters amongst your inner circle.
The doubters. My role model, he was full of doubters. They hung him on the cross, so he got up. And so they can hang me, but I will get up because the cause is larger than the individual. That's what makes movements, when people can go beyond that. What made the civil rights...
This is a movement.
This is a movement.
Much like the civil rights movement? Much like the civil rights movement?
Very much like the civil rights movement. And there are two ingredients that I think that made it strong in the civil rights movement. We were willing to do two things, and I think these are the motivating forces. We were willing to sacrifice and risk. When people are willing to sacrifice and risk, you've got a movement that will make a difference. But right now, people are somewhat reticent. They're somewhat hesitant. And, well, I got a good job, and I don't want to lose this, and all the kinds of things. But when it gets, unfortunately, when it gets to that critical point, that's why now we're probably going to start calling it climate crisis rather than climate change.
You know, you are a wordsmith and really a dazzler with your words and your quips. Just tonight you said, "Well, Maynard, we're saying now, not be a visionary, but be a solutionary." So, I mean,
well, I think there's a difference. Visionaries, and we have to respect, there have always been great visionaries. Those that have sailed the ocean blue to find new countries and new formulas. These were people that had a vision. But visionaries get to a point, and then someone has to take it over. And I believe at that point, a solutionary, one who has certain kinds of areas that can talk about a solution. Right now, in the climate change movement, I'm probably one of the few. I don't discuss how many floods there were last week, how many wildfires there were, how many tornadoes. We know that. We know the statistics. We have 192 people that signed into the Paris Agreement that said this is real. So I want to now start talking about what are the solutions that we get through. And one of the biggest hurdles that we're going to face to make this movement a success, it has nothing to do with business directly, but it's a change of lifestyle of those who use energy. People don't want to change. Poor folks, rich folks, middle income, they want their air conditioning, they want the this and that. They want the largest house on the market. These are all energy consuming issues. So it's got to be a people thing tying in with business and politicians and say, wait, we can change our lifestyle. The average person listening to me right now as we stream, if they've got 3 or 4 bedrooms in their house, they only sleep in 1 bedroom, they go to one place where they eat and do it, and then they go to the kitchen. 3 rooms is all they really need. But we become a consumer abundantly based, wasteful society. We waste 40% of the food that is produced. So we've got to change. That's going to be the big issue. Once we can come to that point, then the people, that's a movement. We start challenging the businesses, and I'm not afraid to use the word boycotting it. Well, in 8 years, the car that you drove here tonight will not be in existence. If you think I'm kidding, go find a payphone booth. And
speaking of cars, I was riding with you when you realized, listen, I believe in the charge on this, but I have a gas guzzling car, and you changed it.
Oh, I changed. I drive a hybrid, and because you can only live a hypocritical life so much. How can you get up? I left a meeting with out at Ted Turner and his family and a lot of the conservatives, and all of them could afford anything. I came out of the meeting that night at the house, and I looked out front, and there were some Priuses and other little cars. I had an S550 Mercedes, but I'm smart enough to park at a couple of blocks. I don't want them to see what I'm driving. You know, I'm up there talking about don't pollute the air. So somebody said, Dr. Curley, we'll give you a ride home. I said, no, my wife's picking me up. She was, and I was lying. I was a hypocrite. You can only be hypocritical to a point. And they said, no, I said, no. And when they all got in, some of them, of course, had Teslas. I went down and got in my car. And as I drove home, I said, you are not truthful, first of all, with yourself. How can you articulate the virtues of following God's first commandments of taking care of the earth? And you sit here. The next day, I went and bought a 300 hybrid car. And I've been driving. You've ridden in it. When I pull up to a stop sign, it goes right to the ballot. And so that's, and I
feel
think that's
better about that, or you feel better about yourself?
Is there a difference? Because you can't feel better about yourself unless you're doing something that's a betterment of others.
So you've always been so articulate, and you've been a prime time female preacher in the pulpit in a black church. But now you're dancing with some highbrow folks. I mean, this is a new circle of friends or influencers you have. Am I correct? Has that changed you?
I think everything changes you. If you don't change, you're great. For me to sit and say, I can look beyond blue and red and Republican and Democrat, because I know one thing: all people want to survive and have a decent kind of life. It's a matter of how do we find the ameliorating forces to bring it together. So when I begin to talk about coming together with, like I'll be at our day, the American Renewed Institute is out in Aspen, Colorado, which was founded by Jimmy Carter and Ted Turner and all of them. And it's interesting for me because in most cases, now what's strange, I'm the only black face in the group, but most of the discussions are around poor people and people in urban areas. So I'm raising the question, why are you all comfortable talking about us rather than with us? So when you talk about the big major conservation group, Sierra Club, Wildlife, American Federation of this, I chair Interfaith Power and Light now. 40 states, 28,000 houses of interfaith, Muslims, Christians, and Jews around America. And standing there to say, unless we make this a moral debate, it will just simply be a discussion. Some months ago, I was in New Mexico with 100 philanthropic organizations, and they were talking about funding. And I didn't say anything for 3 days, and then at the end they said, would you make a comment about what you've seen? This is what I said to them. I said, I've heard from some of the smartest people in the world. I understand the scientific data. I understand the political will. I understand those of you who are environmentalists. But let me say this about all of you who are in this room. You're the dullest people I've ever met. You can't make it in 2019 being dull. The energy movement, the energy crisis, it's a dull conversation. And for young people, for millennials, it's got to have some excitement about it. We're in competition with Atlanta housewives. So what I bring to it is not motivation. I'm not a motivational speaker. You can't motivate anybody to do anything. Cheerleaders can't motivate you to cheer, touchdowns will. But what I like to do is be an inspirer. To inspire you to connect the dots between your health, your education, your voting patterns in terms of your lifestyle. And right now it's being supplemented because of the climate and the environment in which we live.
Joe, is that how you change it? And you've been a major figure throughout the South and among the black community. you're that guy, you're that black guy talking about this. You're invited around the world,
Yeah.
not just in Denver, but around the world, right?
Yeah.
How did that happen? How did you come to be that person they recognize and salute now?
Access and availability. I tell the young emerging pastors now, don't get up there and talk about yourself. Let Christ be your model. But then when your people come to you, be accessible and available. So being accessible, for a long time here in the city of Atlanta, I was one of the few pastors who were still doing baccalaureates at high schools and then run back to preach on Sunday. But you do that because we have to be in our community, the church which black people attend. Now this, let me, you talk about wording. I very seldom use the term, the black church. No.
Am I wrong on that? Am I wrong
I
on
don't
that?
use the term black church, and I'm gonna tell you why. The church is colorless. The church is about our soul. But the church is called the community, the congregation of people that come together who love the Lord, who follows the Christian faith. So the church that black people attend, I say the church where black people attend, not the black church. But it's so easy. I never use the term, well, can I pick you up and go to church? You can't go to church, you go to worship. Church is you. But some people go to church and then they leave church, but the church is within us. So the black church is, it's a misnomer. So I attend the church where black people are the predominant people, but not a black church.
I gotta say something. You have impacted many of us around this town, around everybody you touch. You touch people with your spirit, your style, your articulation. There's a gentleman here tonight named Curley, a Republican businessman and political star in his own right, who said, I came here to hear you. Talk about this issue.
But let me say about Curley. He's a young man that I tremendously respect. In fact, when he was running for office, we met down at Pathways. I was one of his first supporters. See, we got to go beyond the color and the difference. We got sidetracked. You see, America is the kind of country that once they label you, they can box you. That was a young man some years ago who went to Morehouse, and they boxed him into a civil rights leader rather than a father, rather than a husband, rather than a man of conscience. And once they box you, they can control you. So we get caught in the boxing somebody. She's a that, he's a this. They're a lesbian, they're a boy, they're a girl. Then we can control. Why not allow the freedom that goes through? So Cory Booker was beyond those kinds of parameters. So I saw him as an articulate, young, gifted person who's a businessman who understood the legal ramifications. And so that's why I was there.
Really, man, Cory Ruth.
I mean Cory Ruth, I'm sorry. Cory Ruth.
He's a Cory Booker type, though, on the other side of the aisle.
But see, once we get into the others, but the Bible says, the Bible talks about the others. The others there are about, when I do a thing about 19 others. Love ye one another's, the others, all about others, and that's what it's supposed to be about.
You're also doing now, sir, a Dare to Care TV show.
Yes.
You're stealing our camera thunder now. You become
No,
this is on AIB.
It'll be on AIB. In fact, the first show was with a guy in this city. A lot of people have never heard the name Dr. Marshall Shepard. Marshall Shepard was the first black man who was over all of the news, weather forecasting, the weather station in America. Brilliant young man, and he's a full professor at University of Georgia, right here in Georgia. Lives here. Van Jones, who we with Van Jones, he consults with Van. He does he was on the Weather Channel. He was a caster. So whether he and about 4 or 5 other people are talking about the very things that we're talking about. It's not just about climate change, but it's about a lifestyle. And right now, we are suffering from that. The next one will be on gentrification here in the city of Atlanta. Then Cynthia Hale and F. Keith Slaughter will be on the next show talking about, and we've got to talk about sex trafficking here in the city of Atlanta because it is the #1 sex trafficking. It makes more than the Hawks and the Falcons combined. Why are we the #1 airport? Because we can come out there to there, they can have sex with these young girls and leave the city. So we got to understand that we don't talk about it even in our pulpits. It is something that many of the white churches talk about, and we've got to get involved with that. So we've got to go beyond and begin to bridge the gap.
Speaking of pulpits, there's also a documentary being done about your former church.
Right.
Where you pastor Americans and Providence Baptist.
It's the 150th year. And a lot of people don't know that when I got there, a person who all his life was at Providence was a man named Benjamin Mays. That was here. So we're going to have a special day on August the 18th on Benjamin Mays and have high school students come over to see that this man was not just a mentor to Dr. King, but was one that could concretize bodies of information to make you think. All I'm doing in this last phase of my life, this rewiring phase, is to simply say, rethink. I see myself really, if someone says, how would you define this phase? I would see myself as a mirror, that's all. I don't have and when you look into a mirror, if you've got a smudge on your face, you look into the mirror, and you've got three options when you look into the mirror. You can look in and say, I've got a smudge on my face, I don't like it, I'm going to remove it. Or you can look into the mirror and say, I've got a smudge on my face, I think I'll just leave it alone. Or I can deny that there is a smudge on my face. Either way, the mirror I'm not telling anybody what to do, I'm simply saying, these are the realities around us, and if we're to survive, we've got to mitigate and climate change in our lives.
Can Hurricanes Michael's wrath and the Florida Panhandle be revisited, retreated? Will they recover down there? That hits the heart of a lot of poor black folks, the Florida Panhandle. Can that happen?
Has Puerto Rico been recovered?
No.
So the politics get involved, business gets involved. So when business and the political wherewithal is there, we've got the technology out of Stanford right now to go through a lot of this that's going on. Here's another thing. When I was growing up, maybe where you grew up, we used to love fish fry. Come around and fish fry. But right now our ocean, because of the plastic that is in the ocean that's really destroying, where oxygen has come from what they call plankton. Plankton grows on coral reefs. The coral reefs now are turning white. The plankton is dying, so less oxygen is going into the atmosphere under a greenhouse effect where carbon dioxide is destroying us. So therefore, it's all interconnected. And the plastic that's being put into, you're going to see many things coming out now. Plastic straws, plastic this, because it's destroying the ocean life.
Finally, you have a new company launched.
It's going to be starting called Urban Greenhouse Institute. And we're going to be talking about just the kinds of things. And I'm going to make a special emphasis. I was with Otis Moss III out in Trinity, and getting young, gifted pastors where they can begin to connect the dots for our community and understand that it is a pneuma, psychic, and a soma, the body, the mind, and the spirit. And also, we finished a 10-city tour on the Climate Action Network, and I was traveling with several rappers. And it's interesting because we went to 10 historically black colleges, and the goal was to get our students beginning to think about wind energy, beginning to think about solar, beginning to think about alternative energy. More jobs are being created now in that era, and we're still not into that. So we spent 10 days. Now, I was embarrassed at Howard. I was embarrassed, and I had to come back because the guy that introduced me, one of the rappers finished, he said, now we're going to bring on OG. OG is coming out. So I said, OG. So I walked up to the stand. I said, it's so good to be OG. Very seldom can you find an old gentleman still in a business there. And so they started laughing all over the place. And I'm saying, I'm an old gentleman. I thought it was a compliment. One of the rappers said, no, OG don't mean old gentleman. I said, what? It means old gangster. So, and I was sweating. They were laughing at me. But here's how I recovered. I said, you all thought I didn't know it meant old gangster. Man, all up in the balcony at Howard, they were laughing. I said, let me tell you, I am an old gangster. I'm a gangster for justice. I'm a gangster for righteousness. I'm a gangster against the climate. Everybody ought to be a gangster for something. Yeah. And they all started applauding. I said,
you are probably the quintessential advocate and articulator of what's now become the nation's number one issue. Are you the Martin Luther King Jr. of this issue, sir?
No. There are those. I'm the Moses. I'm not the Moses, but maybe like John the Baptist. I'm not worried that the sandals of those that are coming behind me. I'm just out on the front, and I understand that. I understand because I'm taking the initial kind of thrust to do it because I have to cross
and the brunt.
And the brunt, yeah. And some of my friends, they kind of laugh like right now. But see, again, this ties even in the thing that's going on in Ebenezer, in mass incarceration. When I went to Ferguson, I saw the conditions in Ferguson, but it was so hot that people were angry and turning on each other. See, so we've got to connect the dots to understand that we have a role. Here's the key. We have a role to play in our earthly salvation. We have a role to play in our earthly salvation. Now, and I say this. here's the way I'm feeling about this right now. When I went to school, and you went to school, and you studied the seasons, you had fall, winter, spring, and summer. Those were the seasons. Is that how many seasons you learned? How many seasons are there? Just tell me, how many seasons? You went to school. 4 seasons. I believe that there are 5 seasons.
Okay.
I believe there are 5 seasons. Because someone said, I was reading, be ye not weary in doing well, for you shall reap in when? Due season. So due season. We're living in due season. Due season is that it's under God's will. And when you're in due season, it has nothing to do with whether it's winter, spring, summer, or fall. I'm in due season right now. And it said, you shall reap, and you shall succeed if you faint not in due season. It didn't say in fall, because in the fall you're going to give up. In the winter, but in due season, if you faint not, you shall reap your goal. So in this due season era, this is what we are as black people. We're in our due season now. We've suffered, but we've been faithful. And so now, once we cleared up, connected dots, understand that it's all coming together. In due season, we shall reap because we don't faint.
Ooh, ladies and gentlemen, the Reverend Dr. Gerald Curley. Thank you. Only thing you're missing is him and his hat.
Give it to you.
You gotta see this. One last shot, please. This is a quintessential Reverend Gerald Curley.
Now here's what I say. This is a 2.5 inch and a 4-inch crown. Now why this hat is important, in the old days, and for 8 years I opened up Morehouse College at the Crown Forum, and I tell the young people, you young men out there, do you want to get a lady? Do you want to get a sweetheart? Do you want, it doesn't have to be a spelling. Treat women right. And they say, well, what's one of the best ways to treat women right? I say, do this, and you'll always, and I put the hat on the stage, and I do this. Good evening, man. And touch the tip of your head and say, ah! But it's showing respect. I get on the airlines, I go there, thank you for my seat. They say, let me upgrade you. It's the respect. So it's the tip of the hat. And that was the gentleman. At one time, all of our grandparents, I got a hat rack when I come in the house. But when it's just the tip of the hat.
Tennessee State taught you that?
Big blue.
Reverend Gerald Curley. Thank you so much. Coming up, Joe Carr, a candidate for Fulton County Commission.
All righty, we're going to get